This is ABC Radio Melbourne with Raph Epstein.
It is right next to the Brighton Beach train station. It is right next to the Brighton Beach Oval. It's the old Xavier school site on South Road. It's up for redevelopment, so close to a train station, close to the beach, close to a big road. Bayside City Council's internal departments, they found nothing wrong with the development. Nothing in the development made it fundamentally unfit for approval. A lot of conditions on it, but only one letter of support, and all of the local councillors and all of the other letters were against it. So who should get to decide? Jonathan O'Brien joins us once again. He's lead organiser of the YIMBY movement. You heard that right, not NIMBY, but YIMBY. Jonathan, good morning.
Good morning, Raph. Thanks for having me back.
It's fair enough, isn't it? If the local councillors and the locals don't want it, they should have a say, shouldn't they?
Look, they should have some say, but the reality is that the biggest voice that is left out of these discussions and the people who this impacts the most are the people who would have homes in this area and now won't. You know, these are, like you said, it's prime land. It's perfect for homes. These are low impact. This is a low impact development. And the people who aren't going to be able to live here are the people who are affected most, and they don't have a voice here. And that's a huge problem.
Remind me what YIMBY stands for.
Yes, in my backyard.
How would you fix the problem? You're talking about the voice that's not there being the people who won't live there. That's impossible. Mm-hmm. How on earth do you give... what's the process? Like, that's a great idea, a great debating point. How do you make that a reality and make it fair in terms of who gets to decide?
Sure. So we're obviously currently organising, across all councils to make sure there is a voice of support, a voice of positivity, a voice that says, yes, a bigger Melbourne is a better Melbourne, and Melbourne is a great city, and we want to share it. But look, the reality is that this has to come down to state government reforms, and it has to come down to the state government putting in place housing targets that councils have to meet. Look, a lot of the time, councillors actually want to make good housing decisions. They want more people to live in their area, but they're not empowered to do so because the reality of making these decisions hyper-local means that there is always going to be a political backlash to anything requiring trade-offs. And right now, councils are sort of put in this impossible situation where all the hard decisions are put on them by the state government, when really what the state government should do is come in and say, look, you do get to make the final decision, but you have to approve and you have to allow there to be a certain amount of housing built every year. And
it's
then
the quota idea.
The quota idea, exactly. And then you would see projects like this be obviously accepted because it's so low impact.
Jonathan O'Brien's with us. He's the lead organiser of YIMBY Melbourne. Jonathan, I had a fascinating conversation recently with someone just standing looking at 2 blocks of flats in Carnegie, near the Carnegie train station. He was a property expert, I'm not. And one was 4 stories and the other was 2 stories. And he looked at the 4-story one and he said, that one went to VCAT, the 4-story one, and the 2-story one, that one they just stuck with it and went through council. And I was like, how do you know? He said, look, it's obvious. You take the fight to VCAT, you'll get more bang for your buck as a developer. You go through council, you just get the 2 stories. Do you think that's... so that was just his opinion. Do you think that's what is going on at the moment?
It's a little bit more complicated than that, only because VCAT hasn't, and over the sort of past years, VCAT has become a more hostile place to sort of denser development. The reality is that what he's sort of talking about is that the way that you would get it through council and get them to sort of politically come on side is to cut down stories and make it a lower impact development. Yeah. The problem is that right now, as everyone knows, we're in a supply chain crisis. We have a shortage of labor, and the costs are going up. And so in order to make any build stack up, the go down to 2 stories and go through council route actually just is not viable. If we want to deliver homes, we need to be able to deliver them at scale, and we need to be able to deliver that sort of missing middle density.
Jonathan, we've got local government elections this year in October.
We do.
Are you going to be running candidates in lots of places?
We don't intend to be running candidates. However, YIMBY Melbourne will be incredibly active across our inner city councils. We're going to be seeking pledges from incumbents and hopefuls, and we're going to be doing up council scorecards.
Are you
We're
going to be
pretty
endorsing?
We will potentially endorse people who sign on to a housing pledge going into the council elections.
And is the housing pledge that a council has to have a certain number of units or homes developed, is that sort of a thing? Is what will get them over the line? What will get them an endorsement?
Yeah, sure. It would be a pledge to have a sort of positive attitude towards missing middle developments. Again, we haven't got the wording quite out. It's October, but I'll get back to you once we do. It'll be about sort of making a pledge that, yes, I'll support these kinds of developments, and that'll be a way for us to hold them accountable throughout their term. You know, you signed this pledge. This is a great development. Let's go ahead. Let's deliver houses. Let's deliver houses for Victorians. Let's deliver an actual solution to the housing crisis. And the answer to that is building more homes where people want to live.
Got this text from Joe. It's interesting. At the end of the day, these units in Brighton, by the beach train station, they may add to supplies, but they're still priced out of reach for those who most need housing. Is it a housing crisis solution if it's lots of units in Brighton?
Yeah, so there's a process called filtering, which I'll explain really quickly, which is when someone moves into a more expensive build, they tend to be moving out of a place that is slightly less expensive. And that is starts a moving chain where sort of everyone moves up. And by the time you get to about the sixth move in the moving chain, you have people below median income who are moving into a new home. And you're freeing up supply for people sort of down the line. So absolutely, the case is that adding new homes are always going to be expensive. They're new. But adding them absolutely contributes to housing affordability, and we know that from the overwhelming research.
Thanks for your time, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
No, thank you so much, Raf.